He followed his crush into another world and marries her to gain unimaginable power which he must use to protect her from demons. The story begins with a boy trying to catch a beetle when a mysterious light appears out of nowhere, causing him to fall from the tree. Near the light, the boy sees an old man and a little girl who seem to come from another world like aliens. He is surprised to see the girl, who asks for his name. He says it's Sato, and she introduces herself as Hime Nakana. She explains that he can't tell anyone what he saw, asking him to forget about it, and in exchange, she would be his friend. But Sato has a strange feeling, as if he needs to protect her. 10 years pass and Sato is sleeping, but is awakened by Hime beside his bed, saying she prepared breakfast. She has prepared a feast, having woken up early, excited about the end of classes. Sato looks closely at her, noticing that it's been 10 years since she and her grandfather became his neighbors. He is surprised at how much she has grown, thinking she was more discreet before. She explains that she started to stand out, and as a princess, she needs to be strong, which he doesn't understand because she has been saying this for years. She suddenly looks closely and leans in his direction, touching his face and making him nervous, but she was just removing a grain of rice from his cheek, leaving him embarrassed. Leaving for school, the two meet Hime's grandfather, and while walking, Sato keeps looking at the girl's necklace. He remembers when she told him that they are important to her, and that she will give them to the person she marries, before asking if he would marry her when they grow up. Now, Hime realizes he is looking at her pair of rings, saying she won't give them to him. This makes Sato sad, but he thinks it's expected of childhood promises. The two keep their way to school, and there, Hime is with some friends, proudly showing the grade she got on a test, saying that as a princess she needs to be smart. On the other hand, Sato is with some weirdos, while one of them is frustrated about having to spend the summer alone again and being Sato for having a girlfriend. Sato seems confused, but the friend points out how he always arrives with Hime. Sato says they are just neighbors, making the boy tell him not to wait too long and then regret it. So he realizes that Hime sent him a message, inviting him to the summer festival after school. Later on, Sato arrives at the festival, where Hime is wearing a traditional Japanese dress. She asks if she took his breath away, which he admits she did, making Hime blush with his honesty. The two walk together, and Hime seems really excited about the festival. She remembers how they got lost once, and how Sato held her hand after that, so it wouldn't happen again, confessing that he was her hero back then. They keep walking, until a stuffed animal catches her eyes. Sato decides to play, thinking about how he's bothered by them being just friends, so he decides to take his shot, and miraculously it works, to Hime and the vendor's surprise. In the end, the two move away and go to a place with a great atmosphere. Sato feels this is the right moment to confess his feelings, but he is suddenly interrupted by the fireworks. Hime is happy to have seen this with him and suddenly confesses that she has something to tell him. Sato gets excited, but Hime says she is moving back to her homeland with her grandfather and it will be tomorrow, leaving Sato shocked. Back home, Hime says goodbye to Sato, who tries to declare himself again, but is interrupted by her thanking him for the day, saying she will take good memories of him before running inside. That night, Sato is upset, remembering how she said that the place she is going to is far. He feels that he doesn't really know Hime, since he doesn't even know where she is going. He tries to remember the day when he met her, when suddenly he notices a light coming from the window. He looks at the strange glow and realizes that something like this happened 10 years ago. In the forest, we see Hime ready to cross the light when Sato arrives shouting her name and begging her not to go. She is happy that he remembered, but explains that her home is in a different world and she needs to marry and can't change that. So Hime says goodbye again and walks towards the light. However, Sato knows he didn't come there just to say goodbye, so he gathers his courage and decides not to waste more time thinking and runs after her. Suddenly, he appears in a castle, while someone refers to Hime as Princess Crystal. It seems Sato arrives right in the middle of Hime's wedding ceremony with a prince. She is shocked to see him when suddenly a monster from the abyss invades the castle through the window. Hime's grandfather is actually a powerful mage and remarks that they were right to hide the princess in another world. He also gets distracted by Sato's presence, receiving a blow from the creature. Hime needs to give the ring to the prince, but seeing Sato in that situation, she takes the ring and runs towards him, kissing him. The kiss seals the marriage and activates a power from the ring on their fingers. The rejected prince understands it, and immediately throws a sword to Sato. The ring given by Hime makes his sword glow, and without knowing what to do, he runs towards the monster and cuts it in half with a single blow, leaving everyone shocked. But the power is too much for Sato, so he faints on the ground. After the attack, Hime wakes Sato in the royal couple's room, making him remember how they shared the sacred kiss. This makes him blush, and he thinks that Hime really loves him. But she says she just didn't want to marry a stranger, and he was the only familiar face she saw, shattering all the boys' expectations. Everyone in the castle comments that a hero from another world was chosen to be the king of the ring. Hime's marriage was meant to be a bridge between the kingdom of light and the empire, but nothing went as expected, which must irritate the emperor. The prince defends the princess's decision, saying she made her choice according to tradition, and the will of the empire has no relevance there. Hime's grandfather points out that there is a large audience waiting for the new ring king. Sato is surprised to see so many people gathered for him, discovering that he will be their greatest hope in this world. So he shouts with all his might that he is the king of the ring, and that he came from his world to save them all, being their new hero. Hours later, we find Sato alone in the hot springs, thinking that he might have gotten carried away with the speech. Suddenly Hime appears, making Sato ask what she is doing there, but Hime has no choice because they are newlyweds, so asks him not to look at her. They are embarrassed, and Hime begins to apologize to Sato, saying she knew what would happen when she gave the ring, and that she shouldn't have dragged him into this. Sato tells her not to worry because everything will be fine, since he is the new ring king chosen by the Lady of Light. He knows she needs to stay in this world, so he will also stay to protect her, like he always did in his world. We see a flashback of Hime as a child being teased for her hair, until Sato appears, protecting her since they were children. Hime remembers this, and tells him that he has always been her hero. Sato can't stop looking at Hime. She notices this, and tells him to stop because it embarrasses her, saying that their marriage was just a facade. Even so, he is happy to have been chosen, even if impulsively. She takes the opportunity to ask Sato if he really likes her. He ends up saying just as a friend, because he's afraid of being rejected. Suddenly, a bell rings, startling Sato and causing him to stand up accidentally, to Hime's panic. Outside, a horde of beings from the abyss are trying to invade the castle. The couple arrives still dressing, making the guards realize they interrupted something. They explain that the demon from the other day was just a scout, and now there are more of them. Sato needs to act, but he doesn't know how to fight. They hand him a huge axe, and the mage explains that the ring repels evil and purifies everything Sato holds, creating perfect weapons to defeat the abyss. Sato declares that he will do everything to save Hime's world, even without knowing anything about it. So Hime becomes hopeful and kisses Sato, giving him more strength. She calls him dear, asking him to defeat them all, and Sato is ready to fight. The monsters of the abyss are taking control, and one of them corners a servant, but she is suddenly saved by Sato, who orders her to run. He notices that he hasn't fainted yet, so the wizard explains that the princess's kiss gave him strength because the ring translates the bond of husband and wife. Suddenly, Sato receives a blast of wind. It comes from one of the strongest beings among the abyss monsters, and he is completely fixated on Sato's ring. The wizard tries to explain that this creature is a knight of the Abyss King, but Sato runs towards the knight without thinking and is thrown away, hitting the wall. Thanks to the power of the ring, he doesn't have major injuries, but the creature seems too strong, and the wizard warns that they have to run. So the knight summons two more abyss monsters that chase them. Sato asks what that thing was, and the wizard explains that it was a knight of the Abyss King, a high-ranking monster capable of casting powerful spells. They keep running, so the wizard tries to buy time and summons a wall from the ground, trapping the monsters. They find that the knight has gone around and is approaching from the front. Suddenly, the rejected prince appears again, covering the knight and setting him on fire. The prince asks them to flee the castle, but Sato refuses because Hime is still in it. The prince asks them to keep running and follow him. Moving away from the castle, Sato discovers that Hime was in the carriage. She cries happily that he is okay, and the prince says that he had to take Hime out of there when the monsters attacked her tower. Sato thanks him for his help, and the prince introduces himself as Mars, the second prince of the Empire of Jasaras. He is concerned about the kingdom, but the wizard explains that what the Abyss King wants is Sato, so the monsters will be sent after them and the empire should be fine. Sato is the only one capable of defeating beings like the knights, so they need to have enough power. Sato is confused, and the wizard explains that for the power to fully manifest, he must unite the other 4 rings that exist. Sato is shocked to hear this, thinking that only one existed because it worked like a wedding ring. The wizard confirms this, so the next mission is to find the other 4 princesses and gain access to their rings. Sato continues in shock because he is a one-woman man, but having a harem is the duty of the Ring King, making the wizard get emotional just thinking about it. As the wizard tries to convince Sato that this is every man's dream, Hime doesn't seem excited about the situation. They arrive at a simple cabin, which only has 2 rooms available. The wizard wants to share the room with Hime to protect her, but she doesn't want that at all. Hime can't be left alone, so Mars says this means the princess will have to share the room with Sato. Before going to sleep, the wizard gathers everyone and talks about the duty of the Ring King. A long time ago, the world was about to succumb to the power of the Abyss. The Abyss King wanted to command everything with his darkness, destroying kingdoms and bringing misery to the people. But the Ring King forged the rings imbued with magical power, and each represents a force, such as light, fire, water, wind, and earth. The Ring King used them to seal the Abyss King, and after that, he handed each one to his 5 wives, and the rings have been passed down through several generations. Now that the Abyss King has been resurrected, he tries to regain his power, and only after collecting the 5 rings existing from each princess can the Ring King seal the Abyss King, so that is his duty. In their room, Hime and Sato are lying in bed. Hime tries to downplay the situation, saying that marriage is just a contract. When Sato tries to speak, he feels a sharp pain in his rib. Hime becomes concerned and asks him to take off his shirt, making him say that it was a bold move, but Hime is truly concerned, and when she sees his body she feels guilty for getting him into this mess. She starts to cry regretfully and runs out of the room. Sato goes after her, but she isn't in the cabin. He meets Mars outside, and when Sato asks about Hime, he says that she passed by a while ago. Mars acknowledges the burden of the king and queen of the ring, confessing that he feels grateful to Sato for having freed him from this duty. He admires Sato's courage for leaving his entire world in search of love, encouraging Sato to be proud of it. So he apologizes for the monologue, and suggests that Sato look for the princess in the garden. When they meet, Sato gathers courage and finally confesses his romantic feelings for her, saying that being there was a decision he made alone, so she shouldn't blame herself. Hime seems impressed by his determination. She shares that when she arrived in his world, she wanted to forget her life in her world and make her sacrifices as the Princess of Light. But after he followed her, her resolve changed, and she finally had the chance to marry someone she truly likes. However, she knows that the Ring King will always get hurt in battles and marry other princesses. She decides to steal her resolve and be a true wife. She asks him to accept her as a wife again, and they decide to see each other as true husband and wife. After that moment, the two are alone in a room with a large bed. They are frozen with embarrassment and don't know what to do after confessing. Hime starts by saying she is prepared for her duties. Sato looks at Hime and she lies on the bed embarrassed, while Sato seems paralyzed by the sight of her. But he sits back down while Hime wonders what happened. Sato suddenly freaks out, and he says that their first time shouldn't be like this. Sato calms down and explains that the change from childhood friends to being married was too sudden, so he wants to use this time to get used to being a couple, which makes Hime happy. The next morning, Hime and Sato slept poorly because they were nervous, which disappoints the wizard, and he reminds them that their bond gives more power to the ring, advising that they should deepen their bond, which seems to have happened. Mars arrives and hands them both cloaks because their strange clothes stand out. The wizard announces that the first stop will be at the elf village in the Wind Nation of Ramka. Sato is curious about the elves, which excites the wizard because they are a race known for their beauty, asking if that is a good motivation. But Hime sets limits on Sato since she is his true wife. Meanwhile, a girl already seems to despise the new Ring King, finding him disgusting from another world. Ramka was once seen as a sacred place where knowledge from all over was gathered, but about 50 years ago, the place was surrounded by a barrier of storms and isolated itself. They arrive at the location, and Hime is nervous trying to hold her clothes. The wizard thinks about the wind barrier that prevents outsiders from entering, noting how the nation has changed. Suddenly, a huge beast emerges from the forest. Sato imagines it's an abyss monster, but the wizard warns that it's a forest beast. Sato stops worrying and approaches the bear, but this angers it. They keep running and the wizard scolds him for his stupidity. They find themselves trapped between the wild bear and the storm, but when the bear tries to attack them, it's thrown away by the wind. They meet inside a cave when two elves appear, and Sato introduces himself as the Ring King. The elves have heard the rumors, so they decide to take them to the palace. They pass through the roots of the giant tree to get to Ramka, so this way only small creatures can pass the barrier. They arrive at the village, and on the way to the palace, Hime seems curious about what the elven princess would be like. Sato reassures her that he will only take the ring, and this cheers her up. The door opens, and an elf is hiding behind the throne. She seems wary of Sato and asks if he is the Ring King. Sato confirms this excitedly, while Hime already seems jealous. However, the girl wants to know if he's married and if they've done it. Hime is shocked by that question, so she immediately says no, but the elf finishes speaking and she just wanted to know if they've kissed. Hime takes the initiative, saying that the Ring of Light is already on his finger, and they are looking for the Ring of Wind. The girl is still shocked by the dirty idea of touching lips, so she runs away, and everyone is left behind confused, and Sato starts freaking out. But that's where this video ends. Remember to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.